Hello, everyone. Welcome to Built to Win, Women Leading the Game, presented by Unwind FF. We have a bunch of Unwind members in the audience. Thank you all for being here. Unwind serves to make sure every woman knows there's a seat at the table for her, whether as players, creators, and leaders. Today, we're shining a light on the women leading the way in fantasy football, whether they're building something new or offering fresh insights into the game. Let's get started. I'll have everyone introduce themselves and tell about what they do in the industry.
Yep. This one. Okay, perfect. Hi, guys. I'm Erica Renee Davis. I'm a sports gambling journalist. I work for both Fox Sports and most recently FSAN, Fantasy Sports Advice Network. I have a new show launching in a couple of weeks called Front Porch Fantasy, where we will dive into not only betting but fantasy, and also we're going to have hopefully a special guest each week that you may know from his or her playing days in the leagues. I am from Georgia originally, live in Los Angeles, and you've also probably seen me. I'm a sports gambling analyst for NASCAR as well.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Rhodes. I worked as a sports broadcaster for a very long time at NFL Network for 12 years, and then transitioned into some more fantasy-related content in recent years. Did the DirecTV Fantasy Zone channel show for a few years, some Sirius XM shows, a fantasy podcast with Michael Fabiano called Fantasy Dirt, and now I work for Sumer Sports, where, among other things, we are building out platforms, or a platform in specifically, that is meant to make your fantasy research experience a little bit more streamlined. So we'll have more on that in the coming weeks.
Hola, I'm Gemma Martinez. I'm from Mexicali, Mexico, and I'm a fantasy analyst for NFL Fantasy en Español. Also, I generate content for Football Girls MX and Estadio Fantasy and Sopitas. And I hope somebody speaks Spanish here.
Hi, I'm Casey Kasem, and I'm nervous. Hi, I'm shaking. Yes. Anyway, I host a podcast called Get Real with Casey Kasem, where I talk to people in the fantasy football space, big names, the smaller guys and gals, everybody in between, just to get their backstories, kind of help people that are wanting to get into the fantasy space and want to know exactly how do we do these things? How do you do that? It's kind of confusing. I also have a t-shirt company for fantasy football t-shirts. It's Sunday Dreamers Club. And I write for, let's get this right, Roto Baller. I write for Optimus Fantasy and Fantasy Six Pack.
Hi everyone, I'm Kamini Manivanan. I'm the founder of Laces Sports. It's a fantasy sports platform designed for women and casual fans. So maybe not exactly this target demographic, but I'm excited to just share this journey with you guys. I live in New York. I'm originally from Georgia as well. And just excited to talk to you guys today.
Oh, lovely ladies. My name's Amber Phillips. I am the brand relations director for Fantasy Sports Advice Network. I currently just create the building blocks for all the avenues of what Fantasy Sports Advice Network does. And I also work behind the scenes for Football is Sexy, where women talk and teach football.
Yes, we have an incredible panel up here. So we'll start with Amber on this one. So again, to everyone up here, how did you first get started in the fantasy sports industry, and what inspired you to get involved?
So I was invited to a live analyst league. They were drafting in Vegas, and they needed somebody to fill the spot. I was nervous. I basically describe it as I had spicy pits walking into that room with D1 ball players. You know, everybody's like 6'4", and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. And you know what? A year later, I created an Instagram, and it was Lady Shot Caller, and I was like, I'm going to create some content. And then rebranded it as Amber Alert as an analyst. I have a show on Wednesdays. And so for me, it was, I want to see more women in these spaces because I want mixed leagues. Being the only female in 9, 10, 11 leagues was pretty crazy to me because it's amazing. So And then what was the second part of that? Sorry.
What inspired you to get involved?
Oh, it's to really get women in the space, right? Like let's all compete and let's see who's the baddest out there. And I want it to be women, just because it's funny and fun to beat you. But yeah, that's really that's it. Sorry.
Okay, so I think I'm answering the same question, but similar to Amber, I am very, very passionate about making the space more inclusive. I've spent my career in the sports analytics space, so I love the data side of things, but there's a massive, massive gap in fantasy sports where women may feel intimidated to play or embarrassed to ask questions. So along with all my wonderful panelists here, I think we all have a similar goal. And when I started playing fantasy, I was reading articles and watching YouTube videos. I didn't know who to ask to explain what a waiver wire even was. I was like, as a beginner, how do you understand what that is? But I think what's motivated me more is just how many women have come up to me and said, I would love to play, I just don't know where to go. And it's too complex and overwhelming when I download any of these fantasy apps. It's too many numbers, it's too many stats. So we're gonna try to make the game more fun for everyone involved, casual fans and women involved too.
I started playing fantasy football. I had no clue what fantasy football was. My friend was like, you want to join a fantasy league? What is that? I have no clue, right? So I joined and then I won. That's the story. That's how it goes, right? You win. You're like, yeah, I'm hooked. I'm hooked. Second year, I decided I wanted to start a league with all women. So I started a league. Just had no clue what I was doing, but I found 11 women who would actually play. It was really hard back in the day to to get them to go, you know. So that's how I got started playing fantasy, and then getting involved in the space. I've been a fan for a really long time. Her fantasy football was probably like one of the greatest podcasts I've ever listened to in my entire life. So, and Liz Loza has been such a champion for us, and she's been one of my day ones as well. We've got Brandon, Marianne Lee. There's just a lot of women that like pretty dope in this space. And then Ryan Hallam over there with Fighting Chance Fantasy. He's like, hey, you ever thought about putting out content? And I was like, not really, but that sounds cool. And from there, started writing, started podcasting. I wanted to get more minds out there to the masses, wanted to get more stories out there to the masses to tell everyone, you can be involved in fantasy football, you can be involved in putting out content, just do it.
That's okay. I started playing because my husband right now was my boyfriend, and he told me, hey, do you want to be like commissioner with me in a league? And I said, a what? Yeah, a commissioner of a team of fantasy football. I said, okay, I will do it. But when he wanted to make decisions, we were not like, why don't we start this player? And he was, no, this is better. This is much better because this and this and this. Okay, next year when he told me again, I say, no, but I want to get my own team. And he said, okay, you got to your team, and that's why I started to play in fantasy. And generate content was in the pandemic. A group of Mexican women called Fulper Girls MX. They need somebody to make content about fantasy. They invite me. At first, I was making designs like what is a waiver, what is fantasy football, and I put my rankings. And then they say, oh, you have to have a stream live stream, and or a short video, and that's why I get started. And then Study Fantasy invited me to make articles too in Espanol, and well, in Spanish. And like 2 years later, NFL Fantasy in Espanol saw that there was a woman speaking Spanish, making content, and they invite me to make analyst. And since then, it has been 4 years. I have a section called Hidden Gems because my name is Gema, in English is Gem. And I also have been in 3 Super Bowl making fantasy content. That journey has been great. I love that. And what makes me inspired to make this is because when I was searching for content in fantasy, I searched about women making content, and I remember it was Brandon Mariali, Melissa Jacobs, Liz Loss, of course, and I was seeing them and say, hey, I like that. I like that point of view. Maybe I need to make. I need to spread the world and the market in Spanish-speaking women to know what is fantasy football, because in those days only men were playing, and I said, well, maybe here's opportunity that I can introduce to women fantasy, and don't be afraid to ask anything, because sometimes you're starting and you want to know why you are going to put a wide receiver or running back, or why you don't want to draft a quarterback in the first, second, third round, and all that stuff. And maybe when you ask, men were like, why are you making this question, right? And I was like, okay, I want to teach women to know more about fantasy, and they can ask whatever they want, and that's why I get inspired.
First of all, I just want to acknowledge, like, this can be hard under any circumstance. To do a panel like this in a language that is not your native language is, you're a badass. So, secondly, how I got into fantasy. So I got into fantasy, I was doing just traditional football shows, broadcasting surrounding that. When I first started working at NFL Network, I actually had not covered the NFL prior to that. I worked at Fox Sports West in LA, where we had every team except an NFL team at that time. So I had no experience covering the NFL. And so I was particularly inspired to join a fantasy league as a way to just almost, like, at that time, learn the depth of the players in the league, which I think is kind of an underrated part of fantasy football, that if you do it competitively, you will know inevitably who the wide receiver 3 is on the Jaguars, because you have to in order to have an edge. So Michael Fabiano at the time invited me to join, like, a talent league at NFL Network. I won it one of the early years, and then I'm very competitive, so now I have to be the best at this forever. And so there have been fantasy football, like, TV opportunities that popped up that I didn't necessarily chase down, but kind of became natural things. And then I found myself really passionate about fantasy. And one of the things that I'm passionate about now with regards to the fantasy football community, with my toe in both communities, like the regular football analysis and then the fantasy football analysis, is this us versus them that exists mostly on the other side. And I have found, and I say this as loudly and as consistently as possible, that the football analysis that happens on the fantasy football content creators' sites is the best football analysis that there is. You look at, some of the broader TV content that's out there trying to reach everybody, and it's so broad that if you really want to understand, like, who the next best running back is going to be, like, go find yourself a fantasy football creator, because they're looking for that for their own selfish edge purposes. And so they're diving into stats and stuff like that like, you're not as likely to find on NFL Live or, some of the, like, bigger shows. So I will forever bang the table for the fantasy football content community, because I think that there's just really, really good football analysis that's happening here.
I echo Lindsay. So I am more on the sports betting side, and I began my career in sports betting because my Uncle James, God rest his soul, was a degenerate sports bettor when it came to horses. So he would drag me to the tracks out in California, to Pomona, to Santa Anita, And also, again, I went to the University of Georgia, so I moved to LA talking about how great my dogs were. And oh my God, Uncle James, we won. And he would say, Erica, I don't care if they won. Did they cover? And so that was my foray. That and horse betting was my foray into sports gambling per my Uncle James. And I began working in the space when it was, let's just be honest, illegal. In 2011, I was hosting and producing a show called This Week in Football for Kevin Pollak. It's one of the OG YouTube virtual video / audio podcasts. And we had a bookie who would call in every week. I did not know his name. I didn't know his phone number. He was very obscure. And again, it was all very illegal. But from that, I learned and gained a passion for sports betting because, like fantasy, sports betting teaches you an element of the game that you just don't learn from just following it from a strictly sports analysis. Now, fast forward X amount of years later, working for companies like Fox Sports, for NASCAR Digital Media, for FSAN, I think that it is important to have either a fantasy or a betting element to your, I guess, fandom, if you will, because it does make you more educated. It helps you stay more engaged, and it helps you have an edge when it comes to not just like betting the number or like playing fantasy, but just having social conversations when you're at a bar, when you're at a work event. You can talk about things that folks who don't follow fantasy or betting don't know. I can tell you, who, like you said, the number 3 receiver. I can't tell you who that is this year for the Jaguars because the Jaguars, oh my God, what's happening there? But it helps you be able to talk that language, and I just enjoy not only as an analyst, but as a woman in the space. And I do think, to have this inclusivity is really important to continue to like propel and excel it forward.
That's awesome. So now I wanted to dive in a little deeper to a couple of our panelists who are part of building something new in this space and working behind the scenes. So I have 2 questions for Kamini, Casey, and Amber. First, what motivated you to become a part of building something in this space, whether on your own or through partnerships?
I think what has inspired me and motivated me to build something is the level of community that's around this. It's really nice to have things in common with people, whether it's your hobbies or sports. It's something that unites people all over the world, and I continue to have these conversations, especially this kind of weekend where everybody has a sports team they love. But I think the main aspect that I just love so much is the community aspect. Doesn't matter what age you are, what ethnic background you come from, everybody has something that they love about sports in general. So that's what I love, and I continue to build in that space always.
I think for me, it was definitely community. Community is number 1 for me, and I will just say this: fantasy football has literally saved my life. So, and this community has saved my life multiple occasions. So, it's definitely about creating spaces that didn't exist. I think. The fan to the small creator, there's room for everybody. There's a lot of us out here doing a lot of the same things, but with a twist, right? And but there is room for all of us because we can all dabble in all of those things to get our information. So for me, it's like bringing more people that are intimidated into the field, right? If they want to work in the field, if they want to create in the field, I want to give them that space. Come on my show. Let's get started. If I can assist you in building your set, right? Your YouTube set, if it's just YouTube, or do you want to write? We're doing some crowdsourced writing from fans, things like that. So there's room for everybody, and I want everybody to have the joy and experience the joy that I've gotten from this.
And first and foremost, my therapist said I need to get out more and have more friends and talk to more people. So I started a podcast because if you have anxiety, the first thing you're going to do is start a podcast. So that's what I did, and she was surprised, and so was I. But really, honestly, when I first started in this space, I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, basics, sure, but I had no idea, what I need to use to record a podcast. What's Audacity? I use Audacity now, but I had no clue what that was when I went into it. I wanted to get more people inspired. I wanted more people to get into the space that were kind of nervous about jumping in, because it's a lot. But once you get in, it's great. And I just wanted to show everybody's stories and kind of just show how we're all dealing with this crazy thing. And it's so much fun. And it's so much fun to hear these stories. The community is so great, just like these ladies were talking about. If I didn't have this community, man, whoo, my life would probably be a lot different. So thank you.
So I imagine that with building new things, there can be obstacles that come along your way. What kind of obstacles do you encounter as you're building something new, and how do you overcome them?
I think, as we can all see here, an obstacle that everyone is going to come across is the space that we're in, seeing how crowded it is. But like Amber said, everyone here has a company that's a little bit different from the other. But I think breaking into this space, I feel like we're lucky because everyone is very, very welcoming. So I think if you can just stand out in terms of what your mission is for your company, who your target demographic is, that'll make you stand out. For whatever company you're building, whatever podcast you're starting, if you can attract people who have never listened to anything sports related, that's a win in my eyes.
And I'll echo on that as well as visibility, right? Visibility is extremely difficult because it's like, have you heard this guy? Have you heard this person? Have you watched this? And it's like it's hard. But the other obstacle I think I really want to bring up, though, is money. It's hard, right? It's hard to get money. But what I've learned is that it'll always come, right? You'll always find a way to get to the next expo, to have that next conversation. So you just really got to get up and out there and just have conversations. Hence why I have no voice. So just start talking to people. And I've learned after each event, Expo, FSGA, whatever it is, I've created more and more relationships. So as the obstacles come, they actually get easier as time goes on because you meet more people who are going to give you that motivation and that free advice, that that guidance. So.
And as fantasy football players, we do all right. We do all right, but we've got a lot of stuff going on in our lives too. So learning to kind of balance all of that stuff and find out, like, burnout's real, right? Burnout's real. And, sometimes you're just like, my content's not good enough, or, I gave really crappy advice today. I feel bad about it. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all out here just trying. We're putting ourselves out there. So anybody that puts themselves out there, I'm like, dude, you're like number one in my books.
So flipping to the other side of the coin, we'll look at the analysis side. So we're going to have a couple questions for Hema, Lindsay, and Erica. How do you build and maintain credibility with your audience? What has helped you particularly stand out?
So my mother was an English professor. And one thing that we had to do my entire life was keep either a creative journal and or write. So when my friends would be home during the summers from school, we had to keep a journal. Like, we had to write from the time I was able to read and write. And so from that foundation, I really gained an appreciation for and an obsession with always having something written that backed up my word. And unfortunately, we live in a space where sometimes people look at women's analysis, whether it's straight, sports or betting or fantasy, and say, oh, well, she got that wrong. She must not know what she's talking about. She's a woman. That happens. But if I can point you back to my actual research and writing that I've done, it gives me a level of credibility. And, as content creators, sometimes we can come off as talking heads who are just talking for the hell of talking. And that is, the reality of where we are when it comes to needing to produce content, wanting to get clicks, wanting to get engagement. But one thing I'm going to always do is do my research and make sure that I can back up everything that I've told you with some research, whether it's on a major platform that we all know or on smaller platforms, whether it's a Substack or my Twitter rants or my Thread rants. I think that really builds credibility, and it makes me feel better because I know that I've done the work and the research.
So as a woman in sports who did not play sports, the search for credibility and the relationship to that dynamic, I could do a TED Talk on this subject matter, right? Like, there's been a lot of stuff. And it's funny that one of the questions centers around the word credibility, because this is literally, like, I'm passionate about this. The one thing that I would boil it down to is, I think being hyper aware of who you are, what you want, and how you want to be viewed. Like, credibility is earned, it is not given. You have to earn it, you have to consistently re-earn it. And so that has to be authentic. You have to authentically deserve the credibility, meaning that you've done the work, you've done the writing, you can back up the things that you're saying. My advice for people who are looking to, like, asking themselves, how do I become a credible person in this space, is to ask yourself who you want your audience to be and who you want to be to your audience. Because there are a lot of shortcuts that you can take now, right? And we live in a weird time. I mean, frankly, we've always lived in weird times. Like, when I got in, it was weird, but it was weird in different ways. Now, there are a lot of shortcuts that you can take to boost your social media numbers and maybe earn a quicker, bigger paycheck, right? And you see big platforms hiring people who do that. And so it can be really confusing and frustrating. If credibility is what you want, then I think if you can answer the questions about who you want to be in this space, what's important to you, what kind of compliments actually hit you. Like, you know, people, like, for me, like, you know, people can feel like, oh, you looked really good on that show today. Don't care at all. Like, doesn't hit for me at all. But if they say, like, you did a good job explaining such and such, and I really thought, like, now I'm like, that's my compliment. So if you know what you want to be viewed as, always make small and big decisions. I think if you're clear on that, you will make small and big decisions that will lead you to what you ultimately want to get out of it, because you just won't take the paths that take you off of the path to get that, if that makes sense.
Well, first, the credibility, and me and I think only two people that make content in Spanish, Renee and I, is more difficult because we are only two women in Spanish-speaking content, and we are always like, what she said? Is correct the name? Hey, no, you say wrong, you spell wrong, you write it wrong. But even though those comments, I think that we sure to provide a good content. Even though we make mistake, we laugh, and we try to make a good stuff. We try to make research to be more informed, because I think that credibility is to explain and to informate. Sorry. To giving you data like more daily. I don't know if that's correct. And I think that credibility is about that, that you can explain in different forms, but the correct message and the good analysis. And because right now, I think there is a lot of persons making content, and maybe they are given a wrong idea of the space or players. Sometimes they make only content because they want to click view or something like that. I think that we have to be more conscious to make credibility. And well, I also believe that being transparent, owning both the wins and the losses, because fantasy is not about being perfect. It's about building trust over time. And if people trust you, you're going to be there. But if you make, I don't know, bad analysis or a wrong, not bad or wrong, lying analysis, if you don't say the correct things, I think you will lose credibility. And what helped me to stand up is bringing a different voice and perspective to the table. It's not easy, but as a Spanish-speaking woman in fantasy, I connect with community that doesn't always be represented. And I also, to make feel less intimidating, even though right now I'm nervous, in a Spanish-speaking market, I try to be that voice that represent all women, and even not women, people that is is new in this industry or they want to play even one league, I try to be less, to make content less intimidating to these people, and that's all.
When your analysis challenges popular opinion and you face pushback or criticism like anyone in the industry has faced, how do you stay confident in your perspective?
I do want to piggyback really quickly and say, what both of you women said is important as far as credibility is concerned, because you can be a hot talking head today, but if you don't have anything to back it up, where are you in the next 3 years or so? So I do think that's super important, like for having longevity. But how do I deal with people when they challenge what I say? Lord. Where do I start? One thing I try not to do, honestly, I try not to obsess over the comment section. That is such a hard thing to do because I like to know what people are saying, even if it hurts my feelings. But I really try to stay out of the comment section and focus on the feedback from trusted colleagues. And so if a trusted colleague says, Erica, this line or this pick that you're on is stupid, let's just say. I mean, that's an awful word to say, but we can have a back and forth conversation about it. And I am someone who's willing to evolve with trends and be receptive to different and new information. So the way that I try to handle it is by having very open, honest conversations about why my analysis is what it is. Sometimes I can be swayed, sometimes I cannot be swayed. One thing I cannot be swayed by, though, is the comment section, because I stay out of that. I don't go there.
Yeah, that one's tough, though, because I think especially in fantasy, but really in everything, like a lot of us are looking for community building, and so you have to look at the comments and you want to engage and you want to do a back and forth, but then not in a way that's harmful to your
really
mental
toxic.
health. Yeah, there's obviously a lot of that now. So yeah, that one's tricky. I would say this has been a tricky one for me also, that you want to be right all the time. I think as my career has evolved and I have more experience and I've matured in certain ways and have also been in certain rooms where I realize other people that you think have all the answers don't have all the answers. Like, that's been fascinating to me. The tables that I've been at and the rooms that I've been in over the course of my career, with the ability to talk to the highest people in football, general managers, coaches, ask them questions and realize they don't fucking know what they're talking about either, right? Like, in so many ways. It's fascinating. Sorry for my language. So that has given me permission, as long as I know, and this is rooted in the research, that there's a reason behind how I got to my analysis. It might not be right. And I've also come to realize that aside from a few people that ask you for start-sit things and then get mad afterwards if you're wrong, realistically, they just want you to tell them the why, and then they can decide what they feel in their gut after listening to the why. That's what it is, I think, for a lot of people in fantasy, and that's the analyst that I want to be for people. I'm not this guy in my rankings over that guy in my rankings. I'm going to tell you my thought process. If that lands, do something with it. If not, don't. Specific example real quickly here, since we're at the Hall of Fame. I did a show, a Total Access show with LaDainian Tomlinson and David Carr back in the day, where we went through a play call, a quarterback play call. And David broke down, and as you guys know, play calls are like this long, right? And there's chunked, and they explain what everyone's going to do on that play. And David explained, okay, this is what this means. This is what this means. This is what this tells the tight end to do. This is what, all that stuff. LaDainian Tomlinson, whose bust is in that building over there, told us at the end that for the majority of his career in the NFL, he only knew what this part even meant. Play calls this long. So, good example, you don't have to know everything. Get good at something, right? And then just be confident in that. And don't feel like you have to fake all the other stuff. LaDainian Tomlinson got here without knowing what any of the offensive linemen were doing or something, right? So don't feel like everyone has all the answers, and feel confident in your own path to your own answer is what I would say.
Well, in this space, like the vast majority where content is based on the future projections, audience tends to remind the mistake that more than success. And well, I stay open to dialogue and I listen to other perspectives and I get something wrong, which we all, because we are human. Um, but I own it and sometimes I get laughed because I don't want to get mad about these people, even on Twitter or X, because you they can be overwhelming. I remember that I was on the FSGA 2023, and I was talking with Liz Loza and Jennifer Placenti. I think I say it correct. I hope. They told me that I shouldn't pay attention and don't try to explain to all the haters or all the people that say things to you because you're going to be like tired about making that. And so the advice that they gave me was to ignore it. And I make it, and I think that it's getting better for me because if you pay attention to that kind of people, they maybe absorb you. And if you are trying to make content right now, and if you make them important, I think that you are giving too much attention to that people, and you can laugh about what they say, and that you can turn on and move to not be like aggressive people to other people because we have to, people that we are in the industry, I think that we have to be more respect with all people because we never know, the world is all around and we never know who is going to be upstairs or downstairs. And I think that confidence comes from preparation, not perfection. And that's all.
One more thing, I think this is a weird industry, or maybe not, but it strikes me as being an outlier in a way in that you can actually be right and also be wrong at the same time. There is no right answer. We're guessing about human behavior that, especially in this one, I mean, it's a weak link system. You've got 22 people on the field. One person might not do exactly what they should. You might be right about what the coach should do from a game plan standpoint, and then they just don't do it. Like that, we can all think of examples of people that you're like, why didn't that coach take advantage of this obvious hole in the
Arthur
defense?
Smith.
Right? So, you know, at the end of the day, if you understand, you could even have been right and got the wrong answer. That's all that matters. Like there is no right 100% of the time in fantasy. So once you kind of come to terms with that and in betting.
Well, no, I was going to say in betting, there is a right or wrong. Like when you lose your money, that shit is wrong. So, so that is something I cannot say that as a sports gambling journalist and a content creator I have the luxury of leaning into, which is why I think I have a little love affair with fantasy as well. But yeah.
So I want to make sure I have time for the audience, so we'll lightning round this one. The panel is called Built to Win, Women Leading the Game. What does winning look like in this industry to you? How do you know that you're making an impact? Amber can start.
Lightning round impact. I think for me, it's relationships. It's not about followers. It's about engagement. I've been doing this 5 years, and I still only have 850 followers on Instagram, and that's where I started. So, for me, it's relationships with the people in the industry, with the fan and the creator, and this is why we have this. We have the ultimate fan package now, and so that's where I think winning is really bridging the gap of all of those pieces.
I think winning to me means if I've taught you just one thing, that's what winning is. And you remember that one fact, I feel like that's a win in my book.
And winning to me, right now I'm winning. Being up here, I'm winning. Talking to you guys and gals, I'm winning. Just the entire community. She brought up money earlier. I'm doing this for the praise, the comments, the people giving me the positive stuff. And I try to ignore the negativity because I don't like that stuff. I'm sure most of us don't. Let's just get rid of that. But yeah, we're all winning. If you're here, you're winning.
Well, for me, winning is in this industry is not just numbers or followers. It's about creating a space whether others feel seen, welcome, and inspired to be part of the game. And some message, I make some leagues all women's in Spanish speaking, and we have women from Spain, Panama, and Canada too, and that feels so good. When I start to make this league, and receiving the message that said, "Hey, I just joined my first woman fantasy league, and I love it. I want to try more. I want to compete in a mixed league." That kind of message, or when they're telling me it's so cool to see a woman doing this in Spanish, that's the win. Being here with all of you, I say to Lindsay, I met her like 4 years ago in a Scotfish Bowl in LA, and I was so nervous because I want to ask her something to be in the Spanish community with subtitles. That any advice for women that are starting playing fantasy? She gave me that answer, and I was so nervous. I remember because I think that she is one of the greatest. And right now, I'm here. Oh my God, I'm sentimental. It's such an honor, and all of you guys. But I remember that I was so afraid that maybe she will look at me like, "Why you're speaking to me, girl?" But
I still feel that way.
right now, it's such. Oh my God, we never know. Life can be so good sometimes, and that's for me. This is more than numbers or followers. This is a win for me.
I think the answer to that is going back to like what you want to get out of this, like what really matters to you, and are you doing honestly the most that you can do to get to that happening for you? And that's different for everybody. Sometimes it is a big social media following. Sometimes it is a big paycheck. Sometimes it is credibility. Sometimes it is community. Sometimes it's people telling you that you're awesome and right. You know what I mean? Like, I think we all like that. And so whatever that why is for you, are you getting that out of your experience here? And if not, then is there something that you could do to get there that you're scared to do? Or, if you're being honest with yourself, and then if you can say yes to that, then you're winning.
I have two-pronged. Winning for me is learning.
Well, it's literally winning in your business.
Right. Like, I feel that if I have not learned something every time I do some kind of work, whether it's giving my pocket change picks, whether it's, coming someplace, like the Fantasy Football Expo, if I can't walk away and say that I've learned something new, then I have not won. And then my second thing is mentorship. Whether it's mentoring, someone who's younger, whether it's mentoring a colleague, or whether it's you yourself becoming a mentee, because I feel that mentorship is such an integral part of the learning process, no matter the industry. So those are my two things that, to me, make winning.
So I want to turn it to the audience. If any of you have questions, I'm going to have Lauren help us with this part. So Lauren, can you introduce yourself, what you do in the fantasy sports industry, and a little bit about the growing influence of social media?
Okay. Hello. Hi, I'm Lauren Jump. I manage social media at RotoWire, which has been really, really cool. Follow us there at RotoWire, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. So, really amazing group of women up here. Social media has really changed even since I started about 6 years ago. It used to be that you had to wait till the next day to get your information. Now we can follow stats right on our phones for every single player with every single league we're in all at once. And social media basically just adds fuel to that fire. It makes it grow faster. We're suddenly connecting with each other while it's happening, having these cool conversations. We're getting access to the analysts instantly. And those lines are kind of blurred between fantasy players and the analysts themselves. So I think it's just really making the whole industry grow even faster, and people are just learning so much at a quicker rate as well. So it's been really fun to watch that. But let's open it up to some questions from all of you. Sure.
Hi, I'm Katie. I was hoping that you could each talk about specific opportunities, either a part of whatever business that you are a part of, for both the casual player and someone who might be wanting to get into content creation. And I would actually love if Rachel could start by giving an unwind kind of spiel and just making sure that everyone in the audience knows that that is an option to join.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, I'm Rachel, and I founded Unwind 2 years ago. It was actually prompted after the Expo that year. I was missing Hema that I had met and hung out with at the Expo that Bob has created here that connects everybody. And I was like, oh, do I have to wait a whole year to see her again? And I thought, no, I can meet with her on virtually. And I connected with other women throughout the Twitter sphere, and we meet on Zoom meetings, and we've done best ball leagues. And we have a chat, we have a Discord, and it's more than fantasy football. So fantasy football is what brought us together, but we talk about football in general, we talk about women's health, we talk about life, the ups and downs of life. So Unwind is just a full-blown community, and it just keeps growing. And so reach out to UnwindFF on Twitter if you want to learn more about that.
I want to make sure I understand the question, Katie. You want to know what opportunities exist with the companies that I currently work for, or?
Advice?
Right, right. To get in, yeah, for sure. I would say, to jump off of the mentorship thing, find someone who you like or who you aspire toward in the industry and slide in their DMs, or, you know, if they're here today, you know, walk up and have a conversation. I think one thing that we don't do as much as I wish we did, we don't freaking talk to people in person anymore, you know? So coming to events like this gives us an opportunity to really connect face to face. So take advantage of being here today and next year, or whatever your next conference might be, and meet people in person. Ask them their name, ask them for the email addresses. The worst they can say is no. I doubt anyone here is going to say no. No one here is going to say no. So
I'm going to say no.
So that would be the first thing. And then if you are not where you want to be, whatever that looks like for you career-wise when it comes to working in fantasy or betting, you got to create your own shit. I know, you know, we get so sick of people saying that, but you can't get a job if you don't already have a job. And so sometimes that job has to be creating your own platform, having that visibility, being able to have a body of work that someone at some network can point to and say, oh, she does this, or oh, she's consistent. Oh, she comes up in my algorithm. So those would be the two places that I would start.
I'm going to piggyback off the mentorship one. I think the sliding into someone's DMs is actually a really smart approach. And I think sometimes people, like, someone might not respond to you, but someone might. And so find people that you actually really like, or have like for a specific reason too. One of the things that I would advise you to do is to, just in general, everybody, and I like to do this also with people who I want to meet or have a relationship with. If you see something about their work that you really genuinely like that is specific, and maybe I'm going back to the compliments that hit home for you, right? Then tell that person. Just reach out and tell them the thing that you like about their work in a non-vague way, and then that will be memorable for them. Also, if you are asking for advice or help, or you want to create a connection, it's best to ask for very specific, easy to deliver advice. One of the things that I've run into is when people say, like, how do I start, or something that's super broad, and then I'm like, I don't know where you are on the journey, like, I got to do a lot of work. And sometimes I have actually, I'm like, I have time right now, I'll do the work, and I'll write like paragraphs of stuff. And then sometimes I have not been rewarded for doing that with like a thank you or something. Like, I kind of think this is going to start a jump off, and then it doesn't go there, and I'm like, I just wasted my time. So, and time is, obviously, we're all busy, right? So as much as you can say something specific that you need help with, how would you handle blah? I have to do this. How do you think I should go about it? Where if they know and you know that they know, then it's easy for them to go, oh, boom, 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 done. I don't have to start with the entire life story of how to get into fantasy football or broadcasting or whatever. Make it an easy lift for the person, and then that starts a back and forth, and then just be respectful of their time. And I think that that's the best way to actually create a connection.
Can I jump in really quickly? I have to say this. Also, when you create these connections, don't only hit people up when you want something. You know, like if you're going to foster and forge a new relationship, I don't want to only hear from you when you want a referral or a recommendation. Like we're in a relationship now. You know, like that, and I think like it comes across as desperate and opportunistic when you only hear from people you don't know when they want something from you. So try to really forge genuine connections that can benefit both of you guys long term, and don't only hit folks up when you're looking for something for them to give to you.
Damn it, I'm back. Sorry, we're getting to you in a sec. But also then follow up if something happens with the advice. Right? Like now, like she said, now we're in a relationship. I'm invested. Make me invested. Maybe I'm not invested, but if I took the time to answer and then you say like, oh, this is what happened when I did this, thank you. Or that didn't work. Do you have any other, or something else? Then like that makes me feel like it was worth my time to answer it. And now we have something, right? So follow up.
So I'm actually real quick going to jump because it's my answer is pertaining to that similar situation where it's like, for me as a company, and a person who's trying to build relationships with other companies, it is a, quid pro quo, right? Where we like how can we help each other though? And like, for me, I see people help each other a lot, but like my goal is to really, really get in there and like, I want to provide something for you. I definitely need something from you for sure, but I'm gonna return. I'm gonna give you a return. And so, for me, that's like FSAN.com. Like we've got a social media space for fantasy sports, and that's what we're doing. We're going to bring you content creators if you need those. We're going to bring you fans if you need those. If you want to be an analyst, we got that too. You can come jump on the ship. You know what I'm saying? We're all in this together. So it's definitely like, make sure you deliver. It's the deliverables, right? Like sponsorship stuff. Make sure you're delivering on that social media stuff. Like make sure it's showing up and making sure that you're being true to what you said that you were going to do.
Well, I agree with this wonderful woman said, and if you want to make more relationship, come to the Expo, go to the FSWA, be part of the community too, because one of the most important things that I learned in that conference too, my only conference that I went, winter conference, Matthew Berry was there, and well, for me, he's the God. And I remember that he said, don't be afraid to make a relationship. And when he finished, I go and introduce myself. And I talk with him about her book, because he had a book, right? And a lot of things. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say hi, to, if you want advice, be specific too, because like Lindsay said, respect the time of the people too, because sometimes you are overwhelming and you are trying to make a question, but you are like making circles. Be specific, be yourself, be respectful, even though whatever person is, be respectful. And if you want to make content in another language like me, do it. Don't be afraid. It's market for everyone in this space, I think so. And for me, it's very important the Spanish-speaking community, because right now, the NFL is more than USA. We will have games in Germany, in Spain, in London, and I think that we have to grow it more. And I want to finish with this. Use your voice to make the game more inclusive and fun. That's all.
All right. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. As always, guess who has the biggest crowd of the day so far? Yeah, not those guys in the morning that, are big names. It's these ladies. They're rocking it. Thank you, all of you, for being a part of this. Solely appreciate it. Thank you again. Everybody take care. God bless.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel.
Come find us today if you have more questions. The women will be around, and all the women of Unwind. Come ask those questions. There's lots of insights. Thank you.